all of our memories, all of our programs live in our subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is 90% of our mind, which is, obviously most of it. And then we have the conscious mind, and which we have like a relationship with on like a moment-to-moment basis. But the subconscious mind is really the one that's running the show.
Hey guys, welcome to our SoulFam Podcast, where I interview space holders from all over the world. I am your host. My name is Karolina, and I am the connection catalyst. I help spiritual entrepreneurs experience deeper connection with themselves, with others, and with the universe. Today on the show, we have Ishta Devi, a clinical hypnotherapist. I almost said a psychotherapist. Hypnotherapist and counselor. Welcome to the show, Ishta. How are you doing?
Hey, Karolina, thank you so much for having me. I'm doing awesome.
That's
Yes,
amazing.
I'm doing good.
Amazing. I'm so excited to talk to you because I'm very curious about the hypnotherapy, because I've not really done much in this, healing branch, let's say. I've learned a little bit about hypnotherapy on NLP course, but I haven't really dig into it as much as I can say that I know anything about it. So I am here full of curiosity about the topic. But first, I would love to ask you, how did you get to do what you're doing right now? You're helping people, you're working with trauma, with emotional release. So what was your journey to get where you're at, to be a hypnotherapist and a counselor, and to help people right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think like everyone, my journey started when I was a child. It started very early. And where do I start? I'll fast forward a bit, though. I won't go back that far. But let's see. So at 19, I was pregnant with my daughter, Zoe, who is now 26. And like it was a surprise, and I was a single mom, and I went through that process of raising her very consciously. Luckily, at the time, I met some beautiful other conscious women, and a couple of single moms. And at the time, I was already living like a plant-based lifestyle and exploring different like alternative ways of being healthy, understanding health and wellness. And but the pregnancy itself really like catalyzed that for me, because before that I was a typical 19-year-old. I was partying, I was smoking cigarettes, I was drinking, I was having like cigarettes and coffee for my breakfast. It was like I was in art school, I was very artsy and like deep and depressed and stuff like that. And then when I got pregnant, I was like, oh my God, I have to like flip this. I can't do this stuff, because like now I'm responsible for another person. And it really snapped me out of those like many self-destructive habits that I was engaging in at that time. And I became hyper focused on health and wellness. And then from there, I raised her, and towards her teen years, I think she must have been like around 13. I did many entrepreneurial things on the way. I opened a business. It was a tea house, and it was so much work, having the brick and mortar shop, and being a single parent, cutting my grass, getting in my workouts, driving her to dance, driving her to her friends, doing homework with her, like running my business, doing the books every month, like everything. It was just like I wasn't sleeping. I was working long hours. And I think like the 5th year in, I really started to crack open, and I started to realize I was starting to engage in these really unhealthy habits. And I actually like became bulimic in my 30s, which was like such an odd time to take up bulimia. And it didn't last very long. I think maybe about 5 months, until I realized, I was starting to really observe myself doing these destructive things. And I started to like take stock of these really unhealthy things I was doing. And I went online and I searched all these symptoms, and I realized something that I always knew but was unwilling to admit, because as you know, sometimes when we crack open some early childhood trauma, it can feel like a setback initially, because you have to then feel all the feelings that you didn't feel at the time and go through that whole process, unpack everything, and then move into like an integrative phase where you're healed and then you can re-enter life in this new way. And so I looked up, I did a little Google search, and I looked up adult symptoms of childhood trauma, and I checked almost all of them off. And I realized, oh my God, like, yes, I had these memories of these things that happened to me in childhood that I never really acknowledged. And I realized they were running my life in the background. I was, making decisions out of these old programs that were installed when I was a child. And I also just wanted to say, it wasn't my parents. My parents, they were doing their best, but they weren't always present and able to protect me from other things, because they were just so busy surviving and taking care of their children and trying to like keep us fed and clothed and housed. And it's stressful, I know, because I've been there as a parent. And but anyway, so at that point in time, I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to like do something to heal this. And I sold my store. That was a whole process of selling my business, which it's cool. It's still there. It's still very much like an institution in that community. Everybody loves the place. It's called Chai Baba. It's a little tea house called Chai Baba, named after Sai Baba. I don't know if you've ever heard of Sai Baba, but um,
That's
he's got his own.
cute.
Yeah, it's pretty
Hi,
cute.
Papa.
Chai Baba, yeah. Anyway, so I set up a team of healers. I saw some clinical psychologists. I saw like a beautiful energy healer, sound healer, shamans. I did a whole bunch of therapeutic things. And again, initially, I felt like I was 4 years old again, living in my trauma response of a 4-year-old for like a couple of months, really. And but
Wow.
sometimes that's what happens when we admit or to ourselves and decide to heal. Sometimes that can be what happens, because we have to like unpack again, like I said, all those feelings. It doesn't always have to be like that. Not everyone's healing process is the same, but that's how it was for me. So I went through the process, and I learned so much through it. And I realized that breath was my greatest resource in those moments when I was in those moments where I was in a fight or flight. I felt super ungrounded. I was like super hyper vigilant, sketched out, feeling like, my abuser at 4 years old was after me when I was like 35, like really like feeling like, oh my gosh, like having moments like that. I realized one of my beautiful healers, her name is Brenda Malloy. She taught me just this very simple breath practice, and I call it the grounding breath now. And I actually teach it in a breath series that I offer called Breath Rituals. And it's basically like the foundational breath practice. And it's just really inhaling through the crown of your head into your roots. And you can even hold a breath retention and anchor yourself back into your body, because often when we're in that hypervigilant state, flooded with emotions, flooded with negative thoughts that are creating a sense of ungroundedness, we're dissociated. We're not in our body because the body's not feeling like a safe place to be. So just remembering that I was safe, inhaling myself back in, grounding myself. Sometimes it takes 10 breaths, sometimes more, depending on where you're at. And so that was a huge resource for me, which I used a lot, and also just many other resources I learned along the way. Sold my store, went back to teaching yoga for a while, soul searching, because I put so much of my soul into creating this like retail concept that really was, I mean, it had definitely a spiritual aspect to it. It had all kinds of like little meditation things, and people would come in and they'd have an experience. They would maybe like pull a card or open a page in like a book that had like beautiful quotes, and they kind of center themselves and then go have their tea and go back into their day. So um, I've always been into that, like into providing transformation. But in that, at that time after I sold the store, it was just like, well, what am I doing? You know, like what is my offering to humanity? Because I value highly like being in service to humanity. Um, and then I think I moved to Vancouver from the town that I was in, not far from there, and took a hypnotherapy course. And I learned that all of our memories, all of our programs live in our subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is 90% of our mind, which is, you know, obviously most of it. And then we have the conscious mind, and which we have like a relationship with on like a moment to moment basis. But the subconscious mind is really the one that's running the show. And so if we can get access into, I learned that if we can get access into the subconscious mind, then we can have the power to reprogram what is there. And I found out that hypnotherapy is one modality that can really empower us to do that. And then
Beautiful.
later I took a course in counseling, and I became a counselor as well, which is like super complementary. Um, and of course, because of my own journey, I became more interested in trauma and helping people, because I realized through that trauma is this huge epidemic in the world. Like everyone has it, like everyone has some trauma in their life. And often it and if you don't want to call it trauma, you can just call it a negative program. You know, like if somebody doesn't have like this horrible capital T trauma that happened to them when they were a child or anywhere along the timeline of their life, we still have programs from society and from these like social structures that aren't healthy. We live in like a world that it's a patriarchal, capitalistic, colonized system that isn't doesn't honor our soul. It doesn't honor each of our individual expressions. And so just even because of that, people need to, if they want to become truly empowered, they need to like uninstall those programs and reinstall the one that they want, which is aligned with, you know, their truth, and their truth is aligned with cosmic truth. So you know, hypnotherapy, among other like beautiful modalities out there, is a way to do that. And I thought like, wow, like what a beautiful gift to offer people.
Amazing. This is a very inspiring story. Thank you so much for sharing. And I have a lot of questions based on what you just shared, because it is really interesting to change your life when you become a mother. And you became a mother quite early in your journey, right? You were only 19 years old. So my first question on based on the story is like, how did you find the strength to be a single mom and to put it all together? Because I feel like it's not easy to take care of a little baby and to, you know, handle your whole life on your own. And so how did you find the strength, and what has helped you in that time the most when it comes to just feeling empowered to create your life the way you want it, and feeling like you can be multitasking in so many different ways and you can do it by yourself?
Yeah, like I think like anyone who finds himself in a situation, whatever that situation is, you just do it. Like you have to show, you know, you wake up in the morning and you just have to show up. It doesn't matter how hard it is. You just have to do it. And so yeah, there were definitely many, many days where I woke up and, you know, I was alone again with her. And it was just as when she was a baby too, like, you know, there's no engaging conversation. You're not like, how are you today? Like, tell me something
Mhm.
like stimulating is just like a baby. They don't talk, and you just have to like take care of them. And so it was a pretty lonely journey, I have to say. But I really think like also not only just like the resilience of being human and um, doing what you have to do to get through each day, which is, like I said, what everyone does when they're experiencing hardship. If they're committed to getting through it, then you just do. But the other piece I think that was really powerful is just the love that you feel when you have a child of your own, and it's like no other love, and it's an inspiring kind of love that it as empty as my cup was many times, that love just kept filling it up. And you have so much love for your child that you have to show up for them in your best way each day, even when it's hard. And so I think maybe that was probably it.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
The way how you talk about it really opens my heart. I can really feel this love that you're talking about. It's so, so beautiful. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. And so, during this time, you said that you had bulimia for 5 years. So, out of curiosity, and if you're happy to share it, of course, because you might not be, but did you find any specific patterns or programs or emotions that were linked to bulimia specifically, just so that if
Hmm.
anyone who listens and maybe
Yeah.
knows someone who struggles with it, they might have some kind of reference points to what we are
Sure.
looking at here.
Yeah, and it was 5 months. It was 5 months that I like dipped into um, that disorder. It wasn't 5 years, but 5 months.
Sorry, yeah,
And
5 months.
yeah,
Maybe I
yeah, no, that's
missaid
okay.
it.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness it wasn't so long. But some people do go that long. Some people will go like many years. You know, uh, doing that. And for me, I realized, yeah, I'm just going back in my mind and remembering being in those moments where I just felt like my life was spiraling out of control because I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't able to, I didn't have any I did have some self care practice. Like I would go to yoga and I would run, but those were very much like pushing my body. It was like hot power yoga, which I still like love, and I think that these doing exercise and doing workouts is a beautiful, amazing resource for mental, physical, emotional health. So I think it's really good, but that was the only kind of self-care practice that I had at the time. And it was just also like pushing my body. And I was already pushing in my life in so many areas just to try to keep on top of things. And I was in a survival mode at that time. And I didn't feel like in control of my life because there were just so many external factors that were creating so much pressure on me that and I didn't feel like even in control of my body because I think I wasn't taking really good care of my body. I wasn't nourishing my body properly. I wasn't resting enough, and I was in a desperate space to feel in control. And
Mhm.
so, from what I've read about eating disorders, it is an attempt to sort of try to control something and to control the physical body. And so, that's what my experience was in it. I know it's not the same for everyone. Um, and I think it was also just like I wasn't trusting life and I wasn't trusting myself. So that's why I was doing it. And I think I also had like so much pain inside of me that wasn't acknowledging that it was because when I remember you know going through the process, and I would eat I would eat a bunch of things, and then I would think like, oh, I should drink more water so that when I vomit, it's going to be a better consistency. It won't get stuck. So I'm like creating this alchemy of like food and liquid in my body so it can come out easier. And just, it was so dysfunctional when I remember it. But it was sort of this weird controlling thing that I was doing. And I don't know where I was going down with that, but
So how did you get
yeah.
out of it exactly? What did you do to get out of it? Like when did it stop? Did you just start to do some healing, or did you have like a realization, or what did you do?
Yeah, like I said, when there was a moment where I think it was like maybe the last time I made myself vomit. I was in my store, it was closed. I was going through the process of like closing the till and closing all the things that this whole process that I did at the end of each day, and I made myself throw up. I binged on a bunch of cookies, and then I made myself throw up, and then I was emotional, and I just remembered like, oh my God, like this is so fucked up. Like this is not right. And that was just, honestly, it was the last time I did it. And I just said like, no, like I'm not going to do this ever again. And then I did the Google search, and I was just like, oh my God, like this is because of this. Like this, I didn't know exactly the link. Like I didn't know like exactly like all of the links and connections, and I didn't have like the full understanding of how it was coming from early childhood trauma, but I just knew. And I just set the boundary with myself, and I said
Hmm.
like, you're never going to do this again. And I just never did it again.
That's
But again, I was
amazing.
only 5 months into it. It wasn't like a whole, like it wasn't, I hadn't been doing it since I was, like 13 or something. So it wasn't so ingrained,
Ingrained
but
in you. Hmm.
yeah, it was only had been like a little 5 month dip into it. But yeah, I just quit like cold turkey. So
Still, that could be
mhm.
really helpful to share this perspective with other people, because this is what I feel like. That's why I feel like anger is very important for us, because anger is what brings us the boundaries, right? And so if we are like kind of almost frustrated or angry with ourselves, like, oh my God, why am I doing this? Like, this is not
Yeah.
right. This is not something that I want
Hmm.
to do to myself and to my body. So then there's this tipping point where you are like, okay, that's it. And then when you start searching for ways to change it, then it magically shows up, and then you can work on yourself, and then you can help others to work through the same things. So thank you for sharing. I also, when I was exploring bulimia, because I've had some clients with bulimia as well, with the work, because I also do trauma work, to when we go back to childhood and release the emotions there. I also felt like it's about control, really. Like most of the time it was about control, and I think it was maybe sometimes also linked a little bit to gaslighting, and like not feeling like heard and seen, but mostly about, yeah, I'm going to control how much I eat and when I throw up, and how I'm going to do all this. So yeah, it's really relevant, and I found it with my clients as well. So thank you so much for sharing, because maybe if someone knows someone with bulimia, if you can just really find other ways of controlling your life, or get rid of the things where you feel that you're out of control, that can shift a lot. Because as you said, you had the tea shop, and you had this going on and that going on, and I feel like it was almost symbolic for you that you were closing the business, and you were kind of closing the chapter of your life where you're like, okay,
Totally.
that's enough. I'm just gonna do
Yeah.
something else. I'm gonna get rid of all these factors that make me feel out of control constantly, so then I have to have a coping mechanism that makes me feel in control again. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a
Yeah. And the
beautiful story.
irony, the irony of these things that we do, like whether it's substance addiction, or these different ways of trying to like manage our emotions and our thoughts and the overwhelm that we get, depression, anxiety, all of these symptoms of trauma. When we do things like bulimia or like alcoholism or something like that, we're trying to feel in control, but the irony is it actually makes us even more out of control.
Yep. Yep. That's why
So
we
it
do
will
what we
drive people
do.
to yeah, exactly. So like how that's exactly right what you said, like how can I find ways to gain control in a healthy way? And I think those are like self-care practices, exploring self-care practices that make you feel good, that make you feel nourished and nurtured. And there's so many different ones that you can do. So you can just choose one that resonates and make it your own.
Yeah, and you also can do it step by step, because if we have a need, we cannot just like heal ourselves out of the need and suddenly not have it. But if we have a need for control, we can find healthy ways of gaining control. And then when we do trauma work and emotional release and uh, therapy and everything, then slowly we are not even gonna have that much of a need for control anyway, because we're gonna
Exactly.
resolve the issues in our childhood and
Mm.
these feelings that are making us feel like we have to be in control, because otherwise we are unsafe. So I feel like it's
Yeah, we
both
learn
a
to
step by
trust
step journey. Yeah,
step
it's
by
a
step.
gradual
Yeah.
gradual journey to like go from, okay, finding some better coping mechanisms, like more healthy coping mechanisms, and then at some point you might not need any of them either, but you might want to have a habit of taking a bath or doing yoga every day, for your self-care, not out of fear of losing control, but out of preference
Hmm.
that, oh, this habit is actually very healthy for me now, I'm gonna keep it. So that's
Totally.
really beautiful. And so, coming back to the topic of hypnotherapy, because I'm super curious about it, I want to ask, how does it work? And does it put our brain in a specific wavelength that we are going into this kind of like trance like place? Because as I said, I don't really know much about it. And so, if all these people who are beginners in this topic like me, I would love if you could explain a bit about it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay. So, like in a daily, like you're asking about brainwaves, and so there's like four basic brainwaves that our brain usually there's states that our brain is in, and so like right now we're probably in like a beta state, beta state where it's just like daily waking, like getting things done, moving through your day, getting the tasks of the day done. And then alpha is a little bit more relaxed. And then theta is like a deep meditative kind of state. So like when you meditate and all of the past and the future kind of drops away, you come into that present moment state. And also it's reflective of that state between wake and sleep, so that kind of like delicious feeling that you have just as you're like about to fall asleep, that is theta brainwaves. And then you go into deeper brainwaves after that when you're in a deeper sleep. um, but with hypnotherapy, you really want to come into the theta brainwave state, because that is when the conscious mind or the critical mind actually kind of steps out of the way. And then your conscious mind can have access to your subconscious mind. And it's like the gateway opens to enter into the subconscious mind. And so when you're working with a hypnotherapist, they can help to provide that container and that guidance to like help to bridge your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. Um, because sometimes when when you go into a meditation, or when you're in that space between wake and sleep, the conscious the conscious mind isn't like really inquiring that much, because you're just in that space. But with you, if you have a hypnotherapist with you, they can be like, what are you feeling, what are you noticing, like or help to guide you through like a therapy process where maybe you might access like the root cause of a thought pattern or a program, and work through it that way. So they can help to like facilitate the conversation between your conscious mind and your subconscious mind, and then you can do the work. Uh, yeah, because the subconscious mind is pretty. It's kind of like it's not like an active mind. That's like the conscious mind is like, it's a little bit more. How can I explain it? it makes decisions, and it has, it has like, I'm losing my words here, but it will make it will make decisions. It can make choices. It has like,
It's like instinct. It's like a
yeah,
program, right?
yeah. But the subconscious mind is what it is. It's like it holds a space where everything is kept, and it doesn't change unless the conscious mind can, or experiences can alter and change it. So by initiating that conversation between the conscious mind can tell the subconscious mind what to do. That's what I'm trying to say. So that's the power of hypnotherapy. Yeah. Yeah.
That sounds great. And so, how do you get into this theta state? Is this kind of like a guided visualization or meditation, or how do you get there?
Yeah, so it's really as simple as it's just a deep relaxation. If you've ever done something like yoga nidra, it can be similar to that, where you just guide the client into a deep relaxation. But the difference with hypnotherapy and like a simple guided deep relaxation is we do something called fractionation, which is just like uh, so once a person is like kind of going into that a relaxed state, you might get them to come out for a minute and then go back in, and then come out and then go back in, and then that takes them deeper and deeper into that like deep relaxation. I think like people often sometimes hypnotherapy can be a hard sell because people see it in the movies, and they see this hypnotherapist with like a clock going side to side, like follow the clock, and then they're like snapping their fingers and making the person do things, like that's against their own will, whatever, like
Hmm.
that. But it's not like that at all. It's really relaxing. And I think like even if even if you just go into like a hypnotic state, and you stay there, it gives you so many benefits. Like it catches up on rest, and it's like sleeping a full night's sleep. Like it really has a lot of benefits just onto its own, like beyond the therapy portion of it. But yeah, once you get into the state of hypnosis, then that's where you can like start to use different types of therapy. The most basic one would be like positive suggestions. So like say, and it's usually the first type of session that I do with clients, just to get them used to being in hypnosis and working with the modality. Just bring them into this space, and then just say positive suggestions. So like maybe it might be something that we might script before the session, like what do you want to know without a shadow of a doubt? What do you want to believe as your own reality? Like maybe someone might be like, I want to, increase my confidence, or I want to know that I'm the creator of my own reality, or whatever it is. And so then I would just like kind of riff on like a little kind of, maybe we wrote a few paragraphs or a few sentences that they want to know, and then I would just like say these things over and over and over again for like 20 minutes while their subconscious mind is just like absorbing and receiving this as truth. And so that would be like this most simple kind of session. But beyond that, there's so much you can do with hypnotherapy to like initiate that conversation with their subconscious mind, and get them to like dig into where maybe a program began, and then reframe that. So maybe visit a time when it could be as simple as like a time when they were waiting at school and their parents didn't pick them up, and they were late and they were the last one waiting. And, because when we're children, things are so polarized, we don't realize that actually, yes, we are safe. Our parents love us. They didn't forget about us. But like, in that moment, it's so real that they forgot to get us, they forgot to pick us up, and we think maybe we might forever be abandoned. And that got imprinted into our subconscious mind, and as a trauma, even though maybe it wasn't such a bad thing. So maybe we might go there in a session, and then they can reframe that and recreate it, because the subconscious mind is just so gullible and impressionable. You can honestly like reimagine a flying unicorn coming to get you and getting on its back and riding home and taking you home to, to back to your parents or something like that. Like, you can honestly reimagine anything you want. It's really your choice. And that's why my sessions are always client led. I wouldn't say like, do this or do that, or like, do you feel sad or do you feel angry? I would just be like, how do you feel? Like, what do you want to do? Like, how do you want to make, how can you make yourself feel really, really good? And the client always knows the answer, because the answers are really reside within us. And it's never like me that is the one that's like creating those right answers or those right reframes for the client. That's all up to them. And they always, it's just me that creates that container and holds the structure of the space for them to do that work in. And they always do like the perfect thing for themselves, because they know what they need. Everyone, each of us individually, we know what we need to heal. So that's really the beauty of hypnotherapy that I love so much.
Yeah, because we are here to just guide people to their experiences, not to tell them how to do it and how to resolve it. They are their own
Yeah,
healers, right? We are just here
exactly.
showing the way, like, okay, maybe you can go this direction or this direction. You can pick, you can choose whatever is best for you. So I love that. I love what you
Totally.
just shared. And so,
Mm.
apart from positive suggestions, what are other types of hypnotherapy? Are there specific things that you do on the sessions, or does it have a specific name, like a type of thing that you do on the session?
Yeah, I mean, there are like, and there's a lot of different like, like uh, leaders in the field that have created different types of therapies that you can do. One really well-known one is called parts therapy. So it could be like, say someone, for example, maybe they're working on speaking using their voice. Maybe they feel like a block in their voice, and they want to be able to speak their truth. They want to maybe even be able to speak in front of a group with more confidence. And so we might explore the part of them that is afraid to speak in front of others or something like that. So we could say like, in the session, I might ask that part of them to step forward. And then we
Hmm.
might explore that part and be like, what is your role for this person? And honestly, that part is usually will say, um, I'm just trying to protect them,
Oh,
trying to keep them
yes.
safe. And then so we can explore, that part, and then explore like the time when that part came to integrate as part of that person. And then later, and then we can move through a process where we visit times when that part was protecting that person, and maybe reframe those, and then give that part of them a new role, like at towards the end of the session, give that part a new role. um, but then there's a lot of things that you can do, like if you have other tools, and it can almost work like a shamanic kind of, it's very similar to shamanic journeying, or even like plant medicine, going on a journey where you're going into the realm of your subconscious mind and seeing what's in there. And some clients already have their own kind of like practice. So I might like guide a client into the deep relaxation, and they might already kind of know what they want to work on, where they want to go. They might call in their guides, their angels, their ancestors, or anyone to come into the space and help them with what they're working on. And um, so sometimes it's just, I might just pull out some sage and start saging them when I know they're in a space where they're releasing some old program. And I might come in and even do a little bit of like an energy work on them while they're in that. And I can tell that they're working on like letting something go, or they might be even working with their guides or something in that moment. So I mean, you can get a little bit more out of that clinical space and go into a bit more of a shamanic space with it, because it's similar. Like, say, if you know um, someone is being guided on like a plant medicine journey, and the shaman is sitting with them, and they're tuning into the client, and they know or the client may say like, this is what's happening. This is, this is what I'm experiencing. I'm with this archangel is here and they're pulling this thing out of my spleen or whatever it is, like it can be so many things. You never know what's going to happen in a session. And oftentimes too, like we'll go, we might say if a client wants to find the, and it's not always necessary as well. I just wanted to say to find the origin of a program. You can find the frequency of the program and work with it from there, as opposed to having to find the origin. Like, when did I originally get traumatized in this way that created this program? Like, I want to see that time when, someone did something really bad to me and I was only 3 years old. Like, you can do that, but you don't always have to do that. You can just really locate the frequency of that moment and work with that frequency and reprogram the frequency. But you also can go to the origin root cause of a trauma. And sometimes it will, as we regress, we'll go from go to the last time you felt that way, most recent time, and then go to the next recent time, and now go to the first time, and now go to the very, very first time. And maybe they might go back so far that they go into a utero, or they might go all the way back into a past life. And they might even go into a past life where maybe they weren't even human. They were a more subtle form. Their soul was in a much more subtle form and had some sort of, I recently had a session where someone was going back into a past life where it wasn't even a human life. They were in a more, their soul was in a more subtle form, and their role was to be like a gatekeeper between like an aspect of like the collective consciousness. And they were like someone that sort of was negotiating, and gatekeeping aspects of the collective. So so many things can happen in a hypnotherapy session. Like, honestly, like I really never know what to expect when we go in.
This is so cool. It sounds exciting. It sounds like a very like variety driven thing. I mean, like I am very variety driven. That's why I move from place to place all the time and meet all these new people and all these new places. And it sounds like this hypnotherapy can bring you a lot of variety, because you never know if it's going to be this life or past life, or, angelic beings coming in or something else, which sounds really, really cool for me. Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And so, is it as easy to bring someone into the hypnotherapy as the other methods? Because, for example, in the work that I do, it's quite similar, but instead of putting someone in this hypnotherapeutic state, you just focus on your body and on the feeling in your body, and this feeling brings you to the very first time that it has ever happened. But
Mm-hmm.
is it like the same level of, let's say, easiness for everyone to bring them into the state of relaxation so that they can go deep? Or is it different for everyone? Because, as you said, on these movies or Netflix documentaries or whatever, where they talk about hypnotherapy, you can see that some people are more like prone to it, and some people are more, I don't know, resistant, or maybe they're more in the mind, they cannot go as deep. So how
Totally.
does it work with
Mhm.
this type of hypnotherapy?
Yeah, in hypnotherapy, you call that suggestibility. Like, so if you're really suggestible, that means that you can go into that hypnotic state like quite easily. And if you're not very suggestible, then it's not as easy. And it really just comes down to like feeling open to it, feeling receptive to it. If you're feeling resistant, if you're feeling skeptical, then it's not as easy, because you're going to be like in more of a contracted state. You're going to be more resistant to the process. And so it's like somebody who's open to meditation. Like, are you going to be able to still your mind if you don't believe that you will be able to? Probably
Yeah,
not, right? So
yeah, yeah.
so it's probably similar to you. And with, it sounds like you're doing kind of like a little bit of somatic work or something, like feeling that feeling in your body, like where it's held. And that's something else that we can do in hypnotherapy too, is like, yeah, like find that feeling again. It's like that, the frequency of it. It's just like, does it feel heavy? Does it feel dull? Does it feel like it's like maybe gripping or whatever it is, and then finding ways to shift the feeling of that energy to make it feel more open, to make it feel less blocked, more fluid. And so, yeah, it's you can do it if, just like you probably, working with your clients, like they'll be more successful in their session if they're open and receptive to the actual like process,
Oh,
right? So
yes. Oh, yes.
yeah.
That's spot on. Yeah, that's true. Because sometimes the mind just tries to explain or question things or doubt. And then obviously, if someone is going to doubt it, then it's going to be harder for me to guide, someone, because then you're not really in the body where you need to be to go into the session, right? You're more in your mind. But it's okay.
Totally.
Like I do, if I have this kind of problem, I usually do parts work first, just in a little bit different way than in hypnotherapeutic, just channeling the parts of you that feel resistant to doing this
Yeah.
process or doing this work or going into these negative feelings. And then after you handle the conflict of this part of you that is resistant and is like, nope, I'm not feeling that, then this part is on board, and then we do the process, and then it usually works. So otherwise I'm just going to do
Amazing.
some belief work, and then I'm able to guide someone there. But I know how some people can be resistant to it. So yeah, I completely feel you in what you just said. And so, because we are almost done here with our interview, I would really love to ask you one last question about rituals, because I know that one of your passions is rituals. So, for those of us who maybe have not heard of rituals and how they work and how do you even do such ritual, would you like to share a little bit about that and how you also do it in your practice?
Yeah, for sure. Well, firstly, I'd like to say that, like, I think it's helpful to realize that every moment is a ritual. So, like, everything that we do is a ritual. And again, like, going along with the theme of programming, rituals help to like program us in many ways. So whenever we do anything, it's really a ritual, because a ritual is really all about like the intention behind what we're doing. So, um, and bringing like a mindfulness into whatever that we're doing. Because I'm First Nations here from Canada, my nation is Iroquois, Cree, and Blackfoot. Um, I've learned some things about ritual in my traditions. And I think, like, at least for me, and if I'm going to sit down and do a ritual of my own, I usually like start with it's like almost like a prayer. I think rituals and prayers are very, they're very like overlapping. And, but honestly, a ritual can be anything. Like, you don't have to do that before. You don't need sage. You don't need Palo Santo. You don't need to like create like a little nature mandala and like put all like the symbols in, or you don't need an altar. You don't need really anything to do a ritual except for your intention. And so a ritual can be a prayer. It could be like preparing a meal. It could be uh like going on a nature walk. So a ritual literally can be anything. But if I'm going to do like a ritual that involves bringing in prayer, bringing in, sacred plant medicines, and not necessarily psychotropic medicines, but maybe even just the medicine of burning sage, because sage is a plant medicine and the medicine it offers is purification. So burning a little sage. And so maybe my ritual, the intent of that ritual is just to clear some stuck energy that I'm feeling that in that moment. And so I might sit down and take a few breaths, find some stillness. And I always start with, honestly, with all the work I do, whether it's like a counseling session, a hypnotherapy session, or a breath session with a client, or even like introducing ritual, I find it so important and so crucial to come into the space of your heart, because the soul actually, according to so many different ancient scriptures, the soul, its natural habitat is in the heart center. And the soul is our consciousness, really. It's our pure consciousness. It's the spark of light that is like the spark of the greater divine light. It's our own little light. And again, like I said at the very beginning of our conversation, sometimes the consciousness leaves the body when there's trauma, and it's not in its natural habitat, which is the heart center. So when we bring our consciousness there, then we come into a place of integrity, and we come into this place of clarity, and we have access to all of the truth and wisdom that resides in our heart. And then from that place, we come into the ritual space. And so we come into the heart, and again, I use the breath. Sometimes the grounding breath is always the first one. It's super helpful, and then we can like rise up into the heart, and then from there, yeah, maybe light some sage, call in whatever you call in. Rituals are really, meant to be customized for the individual who is ever like engaging in that ritual. So there's never like there's never dogma in ritual. There's never like a wrong or a right. I just recommend coming first into your heart. And then once you're in your heart, you know what you need to do. You know what you need to ask for. You know what you need to activate. You know what you need to call in, because in the heart is where all of your truth is residing and all of your wisdom. So that would be the first step. And then, yeah, you might light a little sage and do a little this or that. You might do a prayer. You might, you might hold an intention, and just, I love to like hold an intention, place it in my third eye, and then bring it into the heart, and then just like release it out into the unified field, and know that it's going to
Amazing.
return. So there's just so many ways. Maybe a ritual might be like making yourself some tea, and like, holding
Or
your
taking a
cup and just
bath.
infusing it with like all of your intentions, and then drinking that into your body. Or like, like you say, like a bath, like putting some crystals in your bath. Or again, you don't need the crystals, you just really need your intention. But always first come into your heart, and then from there it should flow, like, yeah, easily, because that's where the place where so yeah,
Yeah,
hopefully that
this is
makes
what I
sense.
this is what I was talking about on the first ever podcast, SoulFam podcast with my friend, that there is no saying I changed my heart. There is only saying I changed my mind, because the heart doesn't change. Heart always knows what's up. And if we can come to this beautiful space, we know what we need to place, or what prayer we need to say. Or as you said, we just kind of feel it all, because our soul knows what's up. So
I
yeah.
love that. It's so true. I love that quote.
Yeah,
Amazing.
this is really
Mm.
really true. And so for all these people who would like to try some rituals with you, or maybe try some of your programs, what will be the best way to find you? And also, what do you have planned for the next, few months, maybe, or weeks? Do you have some rituals planned, some programs? And yeah, where could people find you?
Yeah. So again, my name is Ishta Devi, and my website is ishtadevi.com, ishtAdevi.com. And you'll see there's a few different offerings. Right now, I'm running a series called Deep Healing Rituals, and they address like these archetypal issues that arise, and we all experience some version of them. Like, the mother father root wound healing is one of them. The wounded inner child is another one. There's toxic trauma bond cord removal, which is when we get into these type of bonds that aren't healthy. And so it's just a way of addressing that. There is forgiving the shadow self. So that aspect of ourself that is unhealed, that wounded aspect, oftentimes we act from that place, and then we feel shame because of our actions. And then we there's this whole process of self-blame and shame, and all these things that is uh, manifestations of the shadow self. And so how can we have compassion for that shadow aspect of ourselves? How can we forgive that part of ourselves, to release it, to shine the light on it, and then to realize that it's just a place that, a place of hurt, a place of a deep wound, and just forgive and feel compassion and hold ourselves in that light and then let it go. So that's that one. And then the final one is meeting your highest self. And it's just meeting that aspect of yourself that is, like we were saying, the pure consciousness, the truth essence of who we are, like really meeting that and merging with that true aspect of ourselves. So what these deep healing rituals are, they're like a 1.5 to 2 hour Zoom call, introduce a few reflection questions, and then go into the hypnotherapy section portion of it. And these are guided, so they're not as much like, how do you feel, what do you want to do now, da, 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 da. It's more like guide into, because they're group calls. So I guide the group into a deep state of relaxation, and then there's some structure around, the process. But at the same time, the way that it's designed, it gives a lot of space for anyone to make it their own and to have that process be like very customized to them. So that's a series called Deep Healing Rituals. The next one is coming up this Sunday. They're at 7:30 my time, which is PST. And then I also have breath rituals, and the next one's starting to come on the 21st. And those are just early morning. Again, my time is PST time. 7:30 every morning for 15 minutes. It's a guided breath practice. And we start with learning a few basics like the central channel and a few like seals. So the seals are just like energy locks that seal and contain your energy. And then we move into the grounding breath, and then we do the purifying breath, the protection breath. And we do these different breath practices that help us. They really give us resources to cultivate a relationship with our breath, but also resources for our mental and emotional health, like on a daily basis. Like, so for example, like we talked about the grounding breath, but maybe the purifying breath, maybe you feel like there's some negative energy that's in your field that isn't your own and you want to clear it. So we can really use the breath as like a tool of alchemy to clear out just like clear out any negative energy that's in our field. And then again, like the protection breath, it's just another way to use the breath as an alchemy to seal our energy so that nothing that's not aligned with that light that we are can even penetrate our field. So there's different techniques, and it's called breath rituals. It's a daily 15-minute early morning practice. Helps us to cultivate a morning practice. I know a lot of us struggle with that. So yeah, just holding space for people to come together and have a morning practice, a morning sadhana together.
Sounds amazing and beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that. This is great.
You're
I
so
highly recommend
welcome.
you guys find
Yeah,
Ishta on Instagram, because all of this sounds very transformative. And for those of
totally.
you who really struggle to just get up and do something for yourself in the morning, this sounds like a plan. Sounds like
Yeah,
something amazing you can start your day with.
totally. And I was just going to add that come spring, I'm releasing both the deep healing rituals and the breath rituals as a self-guided program, so that people can just get it, and then they don't have to come onto a Zoom call. They have like all the resources there that they need to go through it. So like PDF workbooks and audio tracks that are there. So whenever you're ready to move into the next deep healing ritual, you can do it on your own time. All the journal reflection questions, a PDF workbook are there for you. So all of the resources are there. You don't have to come onto a call. Just right now, I'm hosting these live calls. But yeah, like pretty soon in the spring, you can just get the self-guided versions too, as well as the breath rituals. So and
Amazing.
and just to add one more thing, these resources that I created are part of a larger project that will be coming out in like later 2022, and it's called Trauma Cleanse, and it's like a whole self-guided journey, that these deep healing rituals and breath rituals are actually just components of that. So you can get them separate, or, you know, in the future you can take the whole journey, which is called trauma cleanse, and which they're a part of. So yeah, that's
Sounds great.
basically it. Yeah. So thank you so much. I loved connecting with you today.
Thank you. It's been really beautiful and very inspiring conversation. I really, really enjoyed it. And thank you so much for agreeing to being on our podcast because, as we all know, we're creating the bigger picture vision here, creating the app, social networking app for all these conscious people all over the world who really need to connect with other like minded souls. So, yeah, it's just been beautiful to have you. So, thank you so, so much. And yeah. I'm sending you so, so much love from Madeira.
Me too, from Vancouver to you and to everyone listening.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for being with us today. I am the Connection Catalyst. If you'd like to find me, I am on the Connection Catalyst on Instagram. And I'm really grateful that you're here with us, and stay tuned to the next episode.